Remember when Russia and its president were simply fodder for bizarre debate exchanges?
Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
No puppet. Then candidate Trump was pretty emphatic. No one was pulling his strings when it came to dealing with our old Cold War nemesis. But that was before Michael Flynn was forced to resign as national security advisor after it was disclosed he spoke to Russia's U.S. ambassador prior to Trump's inaugural, a potential violation of federal law, and lied to the vice president about it. Now there are calls on both sides of the aisle for congressional investigations into what contact took place between the Russian government and top associates of Donald Trump during the presidential election.
Every day, we see new evidence of the financial, personal, and political grip the Russians have on President Trump.
My concern is also that with now no national security advisor and the turmoil within the administration makes it very difficult for us to exercise responsibilities as to defend the nation.
Today, as the president hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he defended Michael Flynn, saying he was the victim of a usual suspect.
Michael Flynn, General Flynn, is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media, as I call it, the fake media in many cases. And I think it's really a sad thing that he was treated so badly.
That's a much different yarn than we heard yesterday about why Flynn had to go.
We got to a point not based on a legal issue, but based on a trust issue, where the level of trust between the president and General Flynn had eroded to the point where he felt he had to make a change.
Another sign of potential problems at the White House late this afternoon, Trump's nominee for Secretary of Labor, Andrew Puzder, withdrew after several Republicans raised concerns about unpaid taxes and a former housekeeper who was not authorized to work in the U.S. Here to help sort out everything that's going on, we hope, are Chris Shays. He's a Republican, former congressman from Connecticut, who is now a visiting fellow at Harvard's Institute of Politics. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. And retired Brigadier General Kevin Ryan, a former defense attaché to Russia, who is now at Harvard's Kennedy School. General, it's good to see you again. If General Flynn had simply made contact with the Russian ambassador in that transition period and had not lied to the vice president, would he have been fired, and should he have been fired?
He would not have been fired, and he probably should not have been fired. It may have broken a law, a kind of an antique law, but certainly was explainable and helpful to the United States and the incoming administration.
Was the lie what did it? Was that the tipping point, Congressman?
I think that's part of it. I think the real tipping part is going to be what he said, and we're going to know. And I think they got rid of him because they are not happy with what he said on those conversations.
And what do you think he said on those conversations that makes him unhappy?
I can only imagine. You know, I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. Donald Trump was everything my mom and dad taught me not to be. But his absolute love and affection for Russia just is astonishing, given his disappointment and anger with our allies who are our enemies.
So what do you think? I mean, you obviously had dealings with. What do you think was the motive? Is he a lone wolf here, General Flynn? Was he on orders to have the what's your assessment of this?
I do know General Flynn. I have worked with him. We've had him up to the Belfer Center before when he was Defense Intelligence Agency Director. He's a competent and he was a successful general. I think in this case, the only explanation that I can think of that explains lying to the second most powerful man in the United States is that you feel you have to protect the confidence with the first most powerful man in the United States.
Do you think he was doing it on instructions of the president or then the president-elect?
I think it's entirely possible that he was told to do something, reach out to the ambassador, which he did, and that he was also told not to tell anyone else what he was doing.
By Donald Trump?
I believe that he would only have done something like that at the instruction of the president.
You know, I know a lot of generals, and you know a lot more than I know. But for a general to go to a convention, a Republican convention, and yell that you need to lock up the candidate in the Democratic side.
He was chanting, "Lock her up."
Lock her up. And he was getting the crowd to do that. That's to me, almost weird.
Can we, well, I think almost is an inappropriate word, but that's your choice. Like, can we go beyond that, Congressman? The New York Times report says, obviously, there were contacts from a number of Trump associates during the campaign. They went out of their way to say in the story, no proof of collusion, no proof whatsoever that Donald Trump himself was involved. what is it likely? I mean, you've both dealt with people in these kinds of settings. What is it likely those conversations are about? Some are suggesting, the most conspiratorial souls, this was about what was happening on November 8th.
Well, I have a bias that the United States pushed Russia in a bad way. I mean, we kept encroaching. First they lost their satellites, then they lost part of their own Soviet country, and then we go into Ukraine. So I'm not comfortable with what we did to Russia. We didn't allow them to save some face. Having said that, Donald Trump hasn't released his income tax statements. And there are reasons why, and we need to come to grips with it.
Because you think it'll show Russian connections?
Well, we know this. He had lots of financial activities with the Russian oligarchs and so on. So who knows what else?
You know, this dossier that's almost been forgotten, some have suggested, some responsible people have suggested, well, you haven't. Well, that's good. Then you're the perfect person to ask. That all the ties and misconduct unverified, does that elevate the likelihood of some of that being true to a higher plane because of these conversations?
So the corroboration,
Why?
well, because you corroborate the fact that people met or had conversations on the dates that the dossier quoted. You don't necessarily release what the substance of the conversation was, but you can corroborate that it actually happened on those dates with those people. That means that maybe the dossier is closer to the truth than not.
Do you buy that notion, Congressman?
Yeah.
Can we move to James Comey for a second, the head of the FBI, who will continue? I think it was in October that Harry Reid, then the leader of the Democrats, said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he used these words, you have explosive information about Donald Trump's connection to the Russians, and you should release that. His point was, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Explain to me, if you were James Comey, what's the rationale for disclosing information about an investigation, which is extraordinary, into Hillary Clinton's email, but not disclosing information about a years long of contacts between a candidate's associates and the Russian government?
You know what's nice? I don't have to explain it. I don't have to cover for them. There is no excuse.
So if he released the information on Clinton, should he have released the information on Trump?
I think that more people should have known about it.
What does that mean, more people?
More people in the government.
Okay, can we talk intelligence community for a little, which you know a lot about, General? Here's, by the way, Donald Trump tweeted this this morning, which I'm sure you've seen. The real scandal here is that classified information is illegally given out by intelligence like candy, very un-American. I think last time you were here, I said that no prediction I make is ever right, but I think this one may be. That after Donald Trump said things like these leaks, the intelligence committee, this is a few months ago, are reminiscent of Nazi Germany. I think I asked you, isn't there ultimately going to be payback time? Is it possible these leaks that he's going crazy about are payback time by the intelligence community?
It's possible. If we say the intelligence community, that probably implies more coherence and coordination.
Individuals in the intelligence
community. Could be individuals
community.
in the community. Could be individuals in specific parts of the community. I think possibly General Flynn, who obviously knew, he had to know that his conversation with Kislyak, Ambassador Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, would be taped. It's possible that he thought maybe they would not be leaked. Maybe the FBI was considered a friendly part of the intelligence community to the Trump administration.
Speaking of friendly, if you're an ally of the United States, are you less likely today, in light of this disclosure in the New York Times this morning, to share intelligence information with the United States because of our, some would think, unholy alliance with Russia?
I think no, because I think the people that you're sharing with are not, it's not, you're not calling Donald Trump to share with them today. You're calling the same guys you always talk to.
Think about what's astonishing about what you just said. Yeah. They're not telling the president.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to worry because he's not getting.
He's not the guy.
You were a breed that most young people probably don't remember. Moderate Republicans.
I am a moderate Republican.
Okay, so Republicans, what's their response about? Here's Marco Rubio, who's been fairly quiet on this. Here's the senator from Florida, who historically has not been a fan of the president. Here he is today.
The leaks to the press are outpacing the information available to Congress right now, and so we're operating in a situation in which we don't have all the facts before us.
And he went on to say there needs to be bipartisan investigations.
I would not want to be a Republican up for re-election.
You think he could drag down the whole party?
I just think it's going to be very difficult to have community meetings. I would still have them, but the things that they have to not defend but explain or push back from, it's going to be tough.
But
for
wait a
him.
second, isn't the way to deal with that in advance, to preempt it, is to join forces with other Republicans and say, we want to get to the bottom of this as much as the Democrats do?
I know that's true, and that's the way I would do it, but you're going to have a lot of Republicans really angry. I voted against impeachment. I was one of 4 Republicans who voted against impeachment. I had a primary in the next election because I wasn't, going after the president. The terrible thing is that Donald Trump may find sometime that there are going to be crowds of people that say, lock him up. That's what he may face. And then members of Congress are going to have to respond to that.
You worried about that Russian spy ship 30 miles off the coast of Connecticut?
I'm not.
I didn't think you
What
were.
I am worried about is the message it sends. Our enemies, if they don't think we're going to use military force, are ultimately going to force us to use military force. So what I'm worried about is not that they're getting information. I'm worried about that they're testing us and provoking us, and we may do something stupid.
Congressman, it's good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much, General, as always.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time.